Hey guys, Maka here with a quick tutorial on how you can fix stick drift on an Xbox One controller. You can apply a similar method to a PS4 controller or older generation controllers. What you'll need is a controller with the stick drift problem. Now, some people describe this as sticky analog sticks or just flat out broken analog sticks. And what that means is that if you're playing a racing game or turning in a first-person shooter as an example, you may aim a certain direction, and then when you let go, although it does spring back to its natural position, on screen you may notice that your character continues to turn in that direction, or maybe your car continues to steer in that direction. And although it's very hard to actually physically see it, your stick is slightly offset from center, causing the on-screen problems that you're encountering. I'll be showing you how to actually open up your controller, how to clean it, and hopefully that does fix your problem. Now, there's a few things you want to keep in mind. Number one, if your controller is under warranty, I probably just suggest that you turn this video off and go get a new free controller from Microsoft. The warranties do last about 1 year, and they should be good for that stick drift problem as well as any other problems you may have. Now, number two, that thing you should know is that if there's actually like a broken piece inside of the controller, this tutorial will not help you. There are probably more in-depth tutorials on YouTube that will allow you to solder pieces off, buy new pieces and whatnot. And then step number three, you'll need some additional tools to help you actually open the controller, get to the inner body and clean it. So I will be using the Torx T8. I'll be leaving in the YouTube description. I'll have a purchase link for an Amazon version of this for like a few bucks. You'll need something to open up the controller. I'll get to that in a second. You can also use compressed air in order to clean it, or you can use Q-tips with rubbing alcohol on the tips in order to help you clean it. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to remove the 5 screws that hold the 2 face covers together. And there's 1 screw right in the middle behind the battery pack. You're going to actually have to poke through the sticker in order to get to that. And as soon as you poke through that sticker, you will void your warranty if you still have one. Now, the other 4 screw holes are actually behind these plates right here. You should be able to see the lines here. And to get through those, that's where I'm going to be using these metal tweezers. Now, there's a few other things you can use, household items, like I've heard people use credit cards. I've heard people use flathead screwdriver bits. There are actually tools you can buy online to do this for you or make it easier, but I don't recommend them because it's such a specialized tool. It just seems kind of like a waste of money. So what you want to do is there's like 9 clips on the inside of here. And the way I like to personally do it is I click in my trigger and pull back. You'll be able to see it pull back a little bit, although it's hard to probably see on camera. And as soon as you pull it back, you want to just wedge the metal in between and it'll start popping off slowly. You'll want to just work your way along the outside, making sure you're keeping your thumb on pressure here to make sure it doesn't clip back on. Work your way down to the bottom. You can probably hear it clipping a little bit here. And as I work my way to the bottom, it's now unclipped on this side completely. You should be able to see that the edges are not perfectly synced together here. We work our way to the bottom where there's 3 full clips, and then just work your way around to the other side. And eventually, you should have all of them out, and this whole piece should just come out on its own, like that. So now this piece is removed. We're going to do it to the other side. Now, metal tweezers are what I personally found to be the easiest, but again, if you don't have them, you can use flathead screwdriver, possibly a credit card as well. And once you're inside, you're going to have to remove 1 screw here, 1 screw down here, and then on the other side, 1 and 1. Obviously, as well as the back one. So let's do that now. Make sure you don't lose these tiny screws. You will need them to put the controller back together, and if you lose one, you might not be able to get that tightness that you want in your controller when you put it back together. All right, so now that we have all 5 of the screws out right here, you'll probably just want to put them to the side for safekeeping for a while. And now I'll show you kind of the best way to take this apart. This does take itself apart quite differently from the Xbox 360 controller, so you want to keep that in mind. Now what I like to do is literally, for this one, just like face it down and then pull up. And that back cover will come off. And then if you flip it over and you slowly and lightly push in the sticks, the front cover will come off. And you'll be left with this one piece here, which is quite different from the actual 360 piece. And I'll just instruct you to do something really quick here. And this is kind of a sanitary thing that you should probably do once you are at this stage of your controller. Your controller probably is going to have a ton of like nasty sweat gunk buildup over extended use. I literally just took these two plastic pieces and ran them under the faucet and like scrubbed them down a bit for a couple minutes, let them dry before I put my controller back together. So right now they're clean. If you followed me on Twitter, you saw a picture of the before of what they looked, and they were quite gross. You'll notice a lot of gunk and stuff. You'll probably want to get rid of that. It'll make your controller feel kind of more new. It'll also get it to be able to like stick back together a little better. But for now, we're not going to need these two covers. We'll put them off to the side. Now we have the controller here, and you have the left stick and the right stick. And if you look at them and examine them very, 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 very closely, you might not be able to see it on camera, but there is an actual physical difference between the wear and tear on them based on whatever games you play. So for people who play a lot of shooters, they might have a little bit more wear on this stick. People who play racing games might have a little bit more wear on this stick. But you'll notice that one of them will probably be less worn than the other. And I personally, you don't have to do this, recommend that you switch them once you put them back on. So you might want to mark them down so that you know which one's which. And if you switch them, you'll have more grip on the one that has less grip and then less grip on the one that you use less often. Either way, just pull them off. Literally, just with not too much force, just pull forward and they will come right off. And now comes the cleaning part, or the part where you would fix the controller. Now, if we take a really, really close look in here, if there are broken pieces here in this kind of bearing, you would have to actually physically replace this joystick part. You can buy this joystick part on like online via Hong Kong for a couple bucks, but actually soldering it out and soldering it back in is quite a workaround. And at that point, it almost, for the majority of people, probably just becomes a better option to buy a new controller. So I won't be showing you how to do that. But what I will be showing you is how to clean the controller, which will often fix the problem, or at least extend the life of your controller significantly for a couple months. Now, if you have compressed air, feel free to use that. You want to get in here and just blow out any type of dirt that might be caught up in the actual joysticks themselves. You'd be surprised. You can't see anything coming out right now because I have cleaned this controller quite recently. So you can use compressed air, or if you want to get in there, use a Q-tip with the edge in rubbing alcohol and just literally clean it out. And if you push in there, make sure you don't like push way too hard and break anything. But this will help kind of get any of that dirt that might be stuck in there out. And surprisingly, I know it might seem like it's more of a problem than just dirt, but for a lot of controllers, my own included, I tested this method before I made this video to make sure it worked. And this also worked on my old 360 controller. I made a video about that, which literally thousands of people have said that it's worked. This method of just literally cleaning out these joysticks as well as you can with either a Q-tip and some rubbing alcohol, or with some compressed air, this will fix 90% of people's problems, at least temporarily. And when I mean temporarily, I mean like it'll add a couple of months where you have no more stick drift. And that's literally all there is to this tutorial. We've opened up the controller, we've taken off the joysticks in the back and the front plate, and we've cleaned these out. We can also use the spray gun if we have it, or any other type of cleaning method you have that's safe to these parts. And we've just kind of sprayed it down to make sure that any maybe dog hairs or any dirt or dust that's been in your controller is getting taken out. And it's actually quite critical to the controller's performance that it's clean on the inside. And even though it's been locked up for a couple years, it can get quite dirty in the middle. So now that we've done a thorough cleaning job of this kind of inner part, we've cleaned out our shells to get away from all that gunk we've had. And we've also taken these out. Feel free to clean them. You might want to put a little bit of like clean it on the insides of these rings, which you can do while the controller's put together. And we will put it back together, and then I'll kind of join you guys back after this time lapse. When putting back the back plate, what you're going to want to do, this is very important so you don't screw it up. What I recommend doing is, you see these two little metal flickers? Those are for the battery, and those have to go on the inside right there. You'll see them poking through. They have to come on the inside of the plate, and then you won't get a tight fit unless you push the triggers in as you're applying force forward. That's how you're going to get it in the proper place. So make sure the battery the little connectors are there, or else it obviously won't work, and push down the triggers to get a good tight fit, and then just apply all the screws back into the locations that they're supposed to be in. I like to start with the middle one, as I find it the one that kind of holds the controller together the best and allows me to more easily put in the other 4 screws. So once I put in the other 4 screws, as I'm doing that, I want to tell you guys, if you tighten them like really well, don't overdo it. You don't want to like break the plastic holding the controller together. But if you get the screws in really tight, it'll help with any type of flex you might have. If you have an older controller like I did when I was first using this before I fixed it, you might have noticed that if you pressed really hard on the back of a pad, you got a little bit of like plastic flex. It might have felt like there was a small gap if you were twisting the controller. If you do this method and clean it out, your controller will feel like brand new, and it'll get really, really tight, which is a good feel to have while you're gaming. You want that like tightness, and you don't want the plastic to feel like it's moving under the pressure of your own hands. And this does help that as well. It'll make your controller feel like it's almost new. So we'll put in the other 4 screws now. After we've put in all the screws and we're happy with the tightness of the plastic and the feel of the controller, we're going to want to probably put the side panels on. The side panels do actually have a unique side, so make sure you put them on the right side, even though you won't be able to put them on the other side. Now, how I like to put them on is I like to clip the bottom in first and then snap up. And you'll hear all the clicks go in individually, and you'll see that they worked perfectly. We're going to do the same for the other side here. Okay, now we're going to put in the battery pack, obviously just to make sure the controller is still working, which it obviously will be. And bam, the controller works. We're going to take that out so that we're not connected. If we go back now into the game, any stick drift you may have had should be gone completely. If you had a severe problem, again, this won't fix it. If you had a small stick drift problem, this should have significantly helped and improved your controller's feel and performance. There's also a setting in games that you can look at, and it's called the dead zones, and you can change those in order to actually alter the way that the stick sends information to the game and the way the game actually uses that information. For example, if you have a problem with your car turning in Forza Motorsport 5, they have a very good dead zone setting, and what a dead zone is basically, usually it's a number from 0 to 100. And what that means, if you take the standard position, that's 0. If you go halfway, that's 50. And if you go to 100, that's obviously 100. Now, you can alter some of the dead zone settings in certain games so that, for example, if we set our lower minimum to 10, the first kind of 10% of stick movement, the game will not register. So if you're having a problem with the game registering 1 or 2% at the very, very tip, you can increase your dead zones, and that might also help you. But with this tutorial, you should have a significantly better functioning controller with virtually no stick drift. Now, if you do use the controller for a very extended period of time, it probably will be a returning problem. And if you do get a new controller, it will eventually also probably be a returning problem, as this is a very, very common issue that happens with controllers that have been used over a very long, significant period of time. As you can see, this is my day 1 2013 controller, which means I got this controller November 22nd, 2013. It's approaching 2 years later. This is the only controller I've ever used, and I play a lot of Xbox a week. Probably close to 20, 30, 40, sometimes 50 hours a week. And I've been doing that for 2 years. And this controller, although it had some stick drift, after doing what I did to it a couple weeks ago, I have eliminated that stick drift problem completely, and the controller functions almost as brand new. Obviously, the sticks are a little looser compared to a brand new controller. That's not something that can be fixed using this method. Thank you guys for watching. If you found this video useful, helpful, entertaining, informational, or any of the above, feel free to send this video to your friends and share it with your friends on whatever websites you guys frequent. Thank you guys for watching. Please like the video. It does help out my channel significantly. You can also subscribe for future gaming content, and hopefully I see you there. Peace.